If I were to tell you that the Nebraska Cornhuskers this upcoming year would get to double-digit wins by the end of the season, by the way, that would be a first since 2012. Most of you, I think, would disagree with me on that statement. In this video, I will be previewing Nebraska, breaking down the roster, analyzing the key players for them for this upcoming year, and at the end, giving my schedule prediction, and all along the way, really proving why I think this roster has the ceiling of 11 wins and could very well play up to that ceiling. All that and more next. So as per usual, we will start with the roster grades, start with the offense, work our way to the defense, then work our way to the key players for this team. So we'll start with the offense here. As you can see, my offensive grades for this team. At quarterback, I have B+, running back B, receivers A, offensive line an A-, coaching A, which leaves this unit with an overall grade of an A-. At quarterback, I have a B+. Let's go ahead and start there. And we talk about Dylan Raiola. He's going to be the starting quarterback for them. Last year, played as a true freshman pretty much every single game, every single snap pretty much. And overall, I think he played pretty well. I think he played better than any other true freshman quarterback out there. I think he played better than Lagway, yes. I don't think that's very much of a hot take, but it might be to some other fans. But frankly, I don't really care. So Raiola, yes, he's got a lot of stuff he needs to work on. In my opinion, his accuracy, particularly the deep ball accuracy, needs to improve this upcoming season, and his escapability. Not necessarily becoming a runner. I don't think that Nebraska fans or really the coaching staff want him to become a runner, but if he can take what's there and, if it's 3rd and 3 and everyone's backed up and he can escape the pocket and pick up that first down, I think that that's something that he should add to his game. It's just another element to his game that I think would be beneficial to him, and I think we got a glimpse of it last year at the tail end of the season, particularly when you go to that Ohio State game and he broke off that huge run. You were able to see that he can move, he can hoof it, but he didn't do it enough last year, in my opinion. If he can just add that element to his game, I think that he would be a really good quarterback, maybe even top 10 by the end of the season. Then you go to running back. I think that they're good at the top. I think they're really good with Emmett Johnson. I think that he is a fringe top 10 running back in the Big Ten. I would say that he is a top 10 running back in the Big Ten. I think that he is really dynamic. He's really good in space. He's not necessarily a bruiser running back, but he can do that if he wants to. Is he a guy that's going to take it 20 times a game? No, I don't think so. But I don't really think that's what the coaching staff really wants out of the running game. I think this is going to be more of a potent passing attack. And I think it's going to be nice when they get the runs that they get out of Johnson. Depth remains a concern, which is why it's a B. I have Johnson graded as a B+, A- type of running back. But I think depth does remain a concern with this team, especially with Quentin Ives suffering an injury lately with his hamstring, from what I heard. And just overall, you're going to be relying on some true freshmen, possibly a practice squad guy in Mekhi Nelson, possibly. So depth is a concern for running back. Honestly, could be a B-, but it is what it is at this point. The receivers, I think this is one of the best receiver rooms in the Big Ten, in my opinion, because of how well rounded it is. You have Dane Key, who, if he is fully healthy, is going to be a great player for them. He's a guy with a ton of experience, broke a ton of records at Kentucky, tons of experience, and I think that's really what this room needed and what they got with Dane Key. So he's going to be their number one, and he's going to make plays consistently throughout the season, again, as long as he stays healthy. And then you brought in a very interesting guy in Isaiah Hunter, a guy who's got track speed, who, can really stretch the field for you. And a guy who performed well at Cal in his redshirt freshman year last season with over 500 yards, which is pretty good for a redshirt freshman. And then you have Ja'Cory Barney, who stays for this team. He's kind of a gadget guy, in my opinion, but he can also stretch the field. He's got great speed. He took a lot of jet sweeps, jet touch passes, that type of thing last season. And it worked out really well when they were to pull that out. I think he averaged, 10 to 15 to 20 yards every time they did one of those jet sweeps, and it worked out really well. But he's also a guy who can run a lot of the routes on the route tree. You saw him go over the middle of the field a ton, not afraid of contacting for a small guy. I know that is really tough for him, but he does do that really well. And I think that he could blossom into a top 25 receiver nationally. And I think that this is a top 15 room nationally. I think it's probably top 5 in the Big Ten in terms of receiver rooms. Plus at tight end, if Heinrich Harburg can really embrace his role, I'm not too sure about him yet, but with his speed and his size, he could be a real threat at that tight end position. So I think that this receiver room is really good. At offensive line, I think this is a very safe offensive line. I think a lot of people may disagree with me on my take with the offensive line, but I think it's really good. You have 3 incumbent starters. Justin Evans, who I think is really good at center, could possibly be an NFL draft pick. Henry Lutovsky and Gunnar Gatula, who are both guys who I think really could shine for the Huskers. And they brought in 2 guys who have started at power programs. Elijah Pritchett, who had his struggles at Bama, yes, I know, but toward the end of the season last year, he was getting better. And I think that he's a guy with his size and talent. And I think that they have great coaching here with Donnie Raiola at the offensive line coach. I think that if they can really get Pritchett right, he could be one of the best tackles in the Big Ten. He has that potential, but he has a very low floor. He has a very high ceiling. He's very much a hinge player for this team. And then Rocco Spindler at guard, I feel really good about. He was a mauler. He was a bruiser at Notre Dame last season. Again, a Notre Dame offensive line who was very good. It was one of the best offensive lines in the country last season. Helped propel that team to a national championship game. And Rocco Spindler was a very big part of that. He started, I think, every game for them, and he's a guy who comes in with a lot of experience in big games as well, so that's a big plus for them as well. And I do think that this offensive line will be really reliable for them. And then coaching, I have it as an A. Dana Holgerson is a head coach at an offensive coordinator role. So they really have they have 2 head coaches on this roster for this coaching staff. I think his experience and his savvy offense will lift both the ceiling and the floor for this offense. I think this offense has really good potential with Holgerson as the offensive coordinator. And if you remember back to last season, they were struggling on offense, and then they brought in Holgerson to be the offensive coordinator, to a little bit of a grace period that 1 week against USC where they scored 20, not bad, and then they went and scored 44 on Wisconsin, and then Iowa, that's the Iowa game. It's always going to be a close, low-scoring game, but you really see the potential here with this Holgerson offense, which is why I give it an A for coaching. Now we transition over to the defense here. As you can see, my grades now for this defensive line, I have it as a B, linebacker A, corner B plus, safety B plus, and coaching B, which nets an overall grade of a B plus. So start at defensive line again, work our way down. I have it as a B. I think they're really good at edge. I think that they may have one of the most well-rounded edge rooms in the Big Ten, in my opinion. I know that may be a hot take. But this edge room includes Cam Lenhart, Williams Nwaneri, Keona Davis, Elijah Judy. Well, he may play more on the interior, but Dasan McCullough, Wills McGahee. So I really do like this. Williams Nwaneri is a guy that I like to watch. He's a very talented player. If he can get everything right off the field, he will be great on the field, in my opinion. Cam Lenhart, a junior, been with this program now for a couple years, and I think that he's ready to pop. Dasan McCullough is a guy who will be playing at that jack position, and I think he can really thrive there. Keona Davis is a guy who has extremely high upside. He is a monster of a human being, and wouldn't be surprised if they tried to play him a little bit more inside as well. Where I think they lack is the middle of that defensive line. I think stopping the rush may be a problem this year, which is why I have it as a B, because I really like their edge players. But in the middle of that defense, you have Elijah Judy and Riley Van Poppel. Sua Latufa will be in that middle in that rotation as well, and none of those guys have the eye-popping size like they did last year with Ty Robinson and Nosh Hutmacher. So I really do think that that's a bit of a concern, but I don't think it's enough to really derail this defensive line, because I think as we transition over here to the linebackers, who I have as an A, I think that they may make up for any lost ground that middle of the defensive line will have. And let's talk about that linebacker core. I have it as an A. It's an elite group. It definitely is. They all complement each other. You have Vincent Shavers, who is a young up-and-coming superstar, in my opinion. You got Javin Wright, who I think going into his 7th year, if he can get everything right, he can be a great player for them. And then you got Marquez Watson Trent playing at that middle linebacker position, a guy who was an all Sun Belt caliber of player for multiple years. And he's a guy who will really come in and tons of experience, tons of tackles, comes in and really sets the tone for this linebacker room. I love how great they complement each other. Shavers has a ton of talent, not necessarily the knowledge or really the experience that Marcus Watson Trent has, but Marcus Watson Trent has that and is going to be able to help out, him with that. So I really do like this linebacker room. Then you go to corner, B plus. I love Sierra Wright. Sierra Wright at cornerback 1. I think he's going to be a stud there. But past that, a little bit of a concern. You got Andrew Marshall, who will probably be starting for them opposite side. Not sure what to really think of him yet. I think that he will turn out to be a fine player, but then you have Malcolm Hartzog. I've tended to be a little bit more optimistic when it comes to Hartzog because he does end up coming away with all these turnovers, but he does let a lot go by. He's a boomer bust player when it comes to coverage. He's a lot better in zone than in man, that's for certain, as he's great at picking the ball off, and that's something that this defense really does need this upcoming year. So he's a guy that'll play a lot of snaps. Also, guys who I'm looking out for is Amari Sanders and Bly Hill. I think both those guys will play a lot of snaps this season for them. And then a guy like Caleb Benning, I think, deserves a little bit more love than he's getting at that slot corner position. So those are guys to watch out for there, which makes this, in my opinion, a pretty well-rounded room. I really like the upside that Amari Sanders has. I think he played well in the bowl game, and I think that he's due for a good season this upcoming year if he gets the snaps. Then at safety, I also have a B plus. You got two guys who are really experienced here in Deshaun Singleton and Marquez Buford Jr., both redshirt seniors, guys who I think will really stand out for this team as guys who will willing to do the little things, like coming down and stopping that run, plugging the holes, all that type of thing that necessarily safeties don't want to do but will have to do. I think they will fully embrace that and be really good safeties. Now I think the defensive staff remains a bit of a mystery. They hired John Butler last year to be their secondary coach. Now he's elevated to defensive coordinator. He hasn't really been a defensive coordinator at all in his life, really been a specialist with the secondary, and he's had some great secondaries before, both in the NFL and in college, but it does remain a bit of a mystery what he's going to do there. I think that he'll run pretty much the same scheme, but it's a mystery how he's going to call it, in my opinion, because we really haven't seen it, and he doesn't have a track record of it. Plus, they lost Tony White and Terrence Knight, and I think two guys who were really instrumental in Nebraska's success last year on the defensive side. But I do think they have a good linebacker coach, and again, the secondary I think will be really well coached with John Butler. So I think that this staff, although I think that they have their drawbacks, I think that this staff will really pan out. Next, let's talk about the key players for Nebraska this upcoming season. Key returning players for me: Dylan Raiola at quarterback, Sierra Wright at corner, and Ja'Cory Barney at wide receiver. Raiola, that's a pretty obvious one there. Don't need to go full on into that. Sierra Wright is a guy who I really think will step up, and they need him to step up at that cornerback position. And then Ja'Cory Barney at wide receiver. He's the only real returner that will be starting for them. And I think that experience will really pay dividends for him that he had last season. Top impact transfers for me would be Dane Key at wide receiver, Marquez Watson Trent at middle linebacker, and then Desan McCullough at jack. McCullough, I think, provides a real spark for them on that defensive line, a real guy who's been around the block. He's been with a couple different teams, and he's a guy who has a ton of production. Wherever he's been, he's always produced. So I think that that's something that Nebraska really needed on that defensive line and what they got. And with the linebackers, Marquez Watson Trent, I already sung his praises before in the previous segment, so I don't need to go too much into him further. But again, he's a guy who's really going to help out the young guys in this room, and he's going to make a ton of tackles for them. He's a guy who I can see getting triple-digit tackles for this team. Now, my immediate impact freshmen, now I don't mean it that they will come in instantly and start or that they will play a ton of snaps, but guys who I think will make the most impact out of this 2025 freshman class would be Cortez Mills, Dawson Merritt, and Isaiah Mosey. Cortez Mills at wide receiver, He's a guy who has great length, great speed, and great ball skills. I think all things that if you got an injury or someone not feeling well and he has to step in, I think that he could really work well in this offense. Then Dawson Merritt at linebacker, I think that he's too talented to stay off the field, in my opinion. I think that he's a guy who really could come up and make some key tackles for them this season. Isaiah Mosley, who just converted, he was a wide receiver converted to running back, kind of what Debo Samuel does right now in the NFL. So I think that he's a gadget guy, and I think that Matt Rule really likes his gadget guys, so I think that he could make an impact as well. Now it's time for the segment you all have been waiting for. That would be my official prediction for this Nebraska Cornhuskers team. We're going to take it in two stages here. These are really my quote unquote automatic wins. Again, with air quotation marks, they're wins that I would really expect them to have, and that would be Cincinnati, Akron, HCU. I think all opponents really they're easy. I think Cincinnati, they'll win that game by 10 to 15 points. Akron and HCU by 20 plus points, really even more. And then you got Michigan State. That game at home really helps them out. Michigan State's going to be a tough team this year, but you got that game at home off a bye. I think you win that one. At Maryland, I will actually be at that game. If you're there, hit me up. I think that will be a win as well. Maryland, not a huge home environment there. Then you have Northwestern, and I think that'll be a win there as well. And then really the rest of the schedule are games that I think are either toss-ups or Nebraska will be not favored in. So let's go over those now. Forgot to mention there that I think Penn State will be an automatic L for them. So now you see the final record that I have for Nebraska. I think they will go 9-3, 6-3 in the Big Ten, placing sixth in the Big Ten. They'll go to some warm place for a nice bowl game versus a pretty good opponent, in my opinion. I think that they will be definitely contending for the college football playoff. I think that they beat Michigan in week 4. That's going to be a raucous environment. They'll be 3-0. Michigan may be without its head coach, and I think that Nebraska really matches up well with Michigan. And then I think their first loss will be at Minnesota. Minnesota has always given Nebraska trouble, really always. And playing at Minnesota, always a tough environment there. I think they beat USC at home. USC is a team who I think will have double-digit wins. USC is a team who I think will be contending for the college football playoff, and USC is a team who I think Nebraska will beat. So there you go. And then my first real upset for Nebraska, really my only real upset for them, is when they go to UCLA. I really am high on UCLA this season, not just because they're quarterback, but that's a lot of it. And I think that their quarterback will really cause problems for Nebraska, plus that game being played out at UCLA. Weird things happen. I think that they will end up dropping that game at UCLA. I really regard Deshaun Foster as a really good head coach. Off the bye, again, I think they'll lose at Penn State. I think they will beat Iowa and finish 9-3. Thank you so much for watching the video. Remember to subscribe to the channel. I work hard with these videos. I got a low subscriber count here, but we're always on the upward trajectory. Am I right? So go ahead and subscribe. That would mean a lot to me if you did. Go ahead and drop your comments down below. Drop your final record predictions for this Nebraska team and who you think they will lose to, because I could definitely see them losing to USC, losing to Michigan, even to Iowa. I think that they could lose that game, but I also think they could beat Minnesota. They could definitely beat UCLA. There's really no guaranteed win or loss there's really no guaranteed loss on this schedule except for at Penn State, in my opinion. So go ahead and drop those comments down below. Like the video, and aside from that, I will be seeing you in the next one.